I teach about 9 classes on sacred sexuality, but you can jump in at any time. They're all kind of standalone classes, but there are 9 in the series. So this one is Breathing for Better Sex, and I'm Dawn. I've been teaching Eros gathering for about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, good gosh, 11 years now. So really like to teach about energy. I like to teach about sacred sexuality. I am also part of Dan and Dawn, and we teach a lot on power exchange, polyamory, sacred sexuality, kink, all the things. We just got back from Austin, Texas, and Toronto, Canada over the last 2 weeks. We are currently in Columbus, Ohio, and we are parked here for about the next 3 days. We are full-time RVers and just got our new RV. So one of my first disclaimers is that because we're in an RV and in an RV park, sometimes the internet connection can be a little wonky. I've got about 3 backups to this connection. So if it drops me, just stay on the call and I will do one of the backup methods to jump back on. That's pretty much the only disclaimer that I can think of at the moment. Another thing I like to throw out there is that Dan and I have a podcast, the Erotic Awakening podcast, and we have been hosting that for 14 years. So there are 666 shows. If you want more information on sacred sexuality and you go to our website, eroticawakening.com, there's a podcast button. If you click that, it's going to take you to the site with all of our podcasts, and it's got a search bar. If you type in sacred sexuality, you're going to get some episodes returned that will teach you a little bit more about this. We've interviewed people like Barbara Carellis and Donald Michael Craig and some other authors on sacred sexuality. Another thing before I forget is there is a Eros gathering FET group, and in that FET group there is a sticky at the top of the group, and that sticky has a list of books that I recommend, and most of those books I have read and the few I have not, Dan has. So I actually recommend all of these books. They're pretty fabulous, and the people that have written them are pretty fabulous. Let's see a little bit more about me just real quick. Been practicing sacred sexuality since 98 when I finally found words for it. We've been presenting since 04. You might hear me talk about the word Kadishti. Let me type that out for you in the chat room. Qadishti. Kadishti. That is the path, well, one of the paths that I follow, and it means practitioner of sacred sexuality. So if you've ever heard of Tantra, which I talk about a little bit in the sacred sexuality series, Kadishti is kind of like Tantra. Tantra is Far East, Kadishti is Middle Eastern. So just another word for what we do. And with that in mind, I guess that's another disclaimer, is that you'll hear me talk about Tantra, but when I teach sacred sexuality, I teach more umbrella, which means I don't teach the Tantra modality, but I do have some training in it. So a little bit of that will come into play with how I teach this. But like I said, I follow the Kadishti path, and then there's the high magic path and all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of mixture in here. Dan and I also created something called Path of the Kadishti and the Scarlet Sanctuary. Path of the Kadishti, and some of you guys may be in that course right now. They are in the middle of teaching that. We gave that class away to a student of ours and her partner, and they are currently teaching it in Toledo. So if you guys are part of POTQ, I will be seeing you in a couple of weeks in, where am I going to be at? Detroit. This breathing class is like number 6 in the series, 6 or 7, something like that. And I like to teach this one because it goes with mindfulness. Breathing is very important when it comes to mindfulness and when it comes to being connected to other people. So this is one of the simple tools that you can use to connect to another person. Therefore, breathing for better sex. Kind of sounds like a magazine article, but It is true. It's a really good skill. And it's actually one of the first things that if you take any Tantra classes, it's one of the first things that they teach. I just took a Kadoshka class in Phoenix in February, which is another form of sacred sexuality. And I don't know that I can actually spell that one. Kuodoshka, Kadoshka. So it's more of a Native American path. This was also the first thing they taught us during the retreat over the weekend was the whole breathing. And that's so that we can come into the present moment, like I said. Breathing can only take place in the present. So if you're focused on your breathing, your awareness comes to the moment. So what I'm talking about here when I talk about breathing is conscious breath, right? Obviously, we all breathe. It's if we didn't, we wouldn't be here, literally. So breathing, what I'm talking about is conscious breath. It's bringing your focus back to the moment. One of the tools that I use when I meditate is to come back to the breath because when I meditate and when I do mindful meditation, like everybody's mind, my mind wanders. And if I can recognize that my mind has wandered into a story and I come back to feeling the air on my upper lip as I breathe in through my nose, it stops the story. I don't even have to say, like some people will give you tools and they'll tell you to put your story in the cloud and let it float away, or put it in a bubble and let it float away, or these other things. You don't even really have to do that. You just recognize that a story has started and teach yourself that when you've recognized that, to come back and feel the breath, the air on your upper lip. And that'll bring you back to the present. I've learned over time that changing how you breathe can change how you feel. So if you want an example of this, if you have ever bottomed for a scene, you might start to hyperventilate, right? Breathing really fast when something is painful. It's kind of how we process pain, but it can also separate you from the pain if you breathe too fast. If you can remember to take that deep breath, that again will bring you back to the moment, bring you back into your body, and then you can start processing it. I hyperventilate sometimes when it gets to be too much, and then I have to remember to take that deep breath. Or sometimes we'll hold our breath. And when we hold our breath, we think we're helping things and we're really not. It's locking that pain into place instead of letting it move and dissipate through our body. If you ever catch yourself breathing really fast, well, hell, we were just in a car accident. So I caught myself breathing really fast afterwards, and I had to come back to my training of taking that deep breath and just feeling it and being in that moment of being okay instead of in the fears of what could have happened. I mean, it all comes into play. So changing your breath can change how you feel. And like I said, it helps turn down the inner dialogue, the breathing and God, I feel like I could teach these classes in like 4 or 5 words. Pay attention to the breath, right? Which makes you conscious of the moment, which makes you mindful, which stops the stories and connects you to the now. That's like the main purpose of the breathing. But I'm going to go through all the other things that I like to teach because there's going to be a lot of stuff here that might resonate with you. So these classes are kind of like jumping off points. If you hear words, if you find something interesting, feel free to ask me at the end, and I will give you the resources that I know of, and they are jumping off points for more research. All right. When your mind is floating, come back to the breath. I've already said that. It's hard to think of other things when you're thinking about the breath, right? With intent, not only can conscious breath change our feelings, but it can also move energy around in the body. I'll go over a little bit more over that in just a little bit. Breathing, we can also use breathing to get our heart pumping, to get our blood flowing. It makes us more sensitive. When it gets that blood pumping, your body actually becomes more sensitive. So that's a good reason to have that intent when we are paying attention to it. It can move erotic energy in your body, right? Scenes can become more intense when you focus on your breathing, and orgasms can last longer. And that's kind of what we all came here for, right? How to make orgasms last longer? Maybe. It can help with that. I'm not completely orgasm focused, so I throw that out there. I know that is some people's focus. It's all good. I'm going to give you a couple of ways of breathing. Actually, I'm going to mention one now. When I was in the car accident, Memorial Day weekend, so it's been a couple of months. When I was in the car accident, I ended up having some troubles, and I called a therapist, and she's trying to give me all these tools to help me because I was having some flashbacks. And she's like, "Have you tried this thing?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't tried it. Yes, I know about it." And she went through a few things. And then she's like, "Have you tried 4 square breathing?" And I'm like, "I know about this. I teach this to other people. Have I done it myself? No, I haven't done it myself. I forgot it was a tool in my toolbox." And what it is, it's a way to consciously change your thoughts, using breath to change your thoughts. And what I'm supposed to do, and one of the skills that I teach, is to focus on a breath in such a way that you can't really think about anything else. And what it'll do is it'll pull you out of a flashback. So if anybody here has PTSD, if you have flashbacks, if you have bad memories of things, anything like that, you can come into this thing called 4 square breathing. And it's literally you're counting to 4 times. So you're counting to 4 as you breathe in, you're counting to 4 as you pause at the top of the breath, you count to 4 as you exhale, you count to 4 as you hold that emptiness. And then it's 4 inhale, 4 pause, 4 exhale, 4 pause. And it doesn't matter the speed that you do it in. You can do it fast, just try not to hyperventilate. You can do it really slow. I kind of play around with it a little bit because sometimes I'll end up feeling a little claustrophobic if I do it too fast or too slow, which is a really strange feeling. But if I practice with it, I can find the speed that's just right for me. And it's actually very calming. So I usually do it. How do I do it? Do I do it through my mouth or my nose? I do it through my nose because breathing through your mouth is actually activating, right? It's energizing, whereas breathing through your nose is calming. So if you can remember that, and if you need to calm down, you breathe through your nose. Now, for some people to get connected, what I usually walk them through is breathing in through their nose and then out through their mouth. And that's actually very grounding for you. So there's 2 breathing methods right there, the 4 square breathing, and then the in through the nose and the out through the mouth. And if you're trying to get connected, and let's say it's before a scene, so you're standing there with the other person, you're getting ready to have a scene, and instead of just throwing off your clothes and jumping onto the furniture, you want to connect with the person, right? Not everybody wants to, but let's say that we do. We want to connect with that person. So what I do is I stand in front of them, I make the eye contact, which is also very important when you study sacred sexuality. You make the eye contact, and then as the bottom, I'll listen to the top's breath and try to match mine to their breath. The tops that I have played with, usually when we do that, they'll breathe loudly so that I can do that. Maybe they'll put their hand on my chest and it's, and they'll get that synced up. And when your breathing syncs up, your energy syncs up, and it's easier to make that energetic connection. Most of us breathe just enough to stay alive. We're very shallow breathers. If you ever watch a baby, babies know how to breathe deep. I mean, they breathe with their whole body. Sometimes for us, we've learned to breathe so shallow that if we take a deep breath, it actually feels uncomfortable until we learn how to do it. So we need to practice taking that deep breath. Huh, kind of relaxing. Trying to think of other times that I focus on my breath. I mean, especially in scene. If I'm coming down from a scene and I'm sitting still and I'm drinking my glass of water and I'm wrapped up in my blanket, I'll make sure to breathe deep. And that's because, again, I'm trying to ground so that I'm not so floaty. Because if I'm floaty and I walk away, I don't know where I'm going to end up. So I need to be very present so that I know what I'm doing. How many of us, I don't know about you guys, but have you ever tried to have a quickie orgasm? Maybe you're trying to go to sleep, maybe you're stressed out, whatever. You're trying to have a quickie orgasm and you hold your breath. We try not to do that, right? So you want that energy to flow through your body, and it'll actually, the breath actually does that, and that will help you reach an orgasm faster. So I know there have been times that I have held my breath, like, come on, it's time. And then I hold my breath, and then I get a headache, and then things just don't go the way I want them to. Breathe, make sure you breathe through it. Some people have actually, and this is a thing, and this might be one of those things that you want to research, is full body orgasms. So in a couple of other of my classes, I talk about chakras. And chakras are the energy centers that run up your middle. And for most of us, like it happens, our orgasm starts in our root chakra, right? That is where our genitals are. So orgasm starts there. Many of us are perfectly fine. Many of us don't even know that there are things other than genital orgasms. You can actually move that energy through your body. Maybe it's happened and you were unaware that that was going on, but it was an orgasm that felt different. It can actually travel up your body and up your chakras and become much more intense. I have had my partner, I've got 2, 3 partners that know how to do this. Dan, my main partner, has done it purposefully before. And what he does is he can help bring his partner to orgasm, and then he'll literally take his hand and with intent, he'll push that energy. So like he'll push it up my body so that it'll hit my heart chakra and then hit my throat chakra, which makes me scream, and then up out the top of my head. So that energy just waves completely through my body. And like I said, he does it on purpose. He's got the intent and will is what moves energy. And then he'll give his hand as the focal point and he'll just push it, and I mean, you can feel it. It's really amazing. And the breathing, he'll breathe with you and he'll breathe out loud so that you'll breathe with him. And it's just very focused and very conscious and very kick ass to tell the truth. And then some people can move energy in other people's bodies. And when I talk about energy, I know there's some people that don't feel energy, and that's okay. And there's some people that are very energy aware. So I've got another partner that does not feel energy, but he can absolutely move energy. And he can stand behind me and not touch me. And he can run his hand, like if my back is here, he can run his hand out here. And I know he's doing it even though I can't see him. I can feel that energy moving up. So energy rocks. If you like energy, come to some of my beginning classes and I'll teach more about that. Conscious breathing can be used for anything, like I've said. It can be used for changing emotions. It can be used to have a deeper connection to another person. It can be used for better orgasms. And it's just it's basic. You always carry it with you, right? Your breath is something that you can work with and you don't need any tools. You've got the four square breathing. You've got the in through the nose, out through the mouth. Some of us, me included, have used breathing to alter consciousness. You can hyperventilate, and that can actually send you into a trance. I've used that before. The way I did it was it's this you breathe in and out at a pace that allows a lot of oxygen to come in, and then that kind of makes you floaty and very trancy. So that could be part of what causes subspace besides the chemicals that are happening in our heads. But the whole breathing and the extra oxygen provides mind altering experiences. Some of the things that I would recommend when doing that is like keeping your eyes, if you're doing it on purpose, keeping your eyes softly open. I kind of bottom in two different ways, and one of them is with my eyes completely closed. Just because of the senses. I like having different senses besides the vision. Vision is my primary processing mode. So I like to close my eyes or be blindfolded or whatever so that my other processing modes come into play. And then the other way is by keeping my eyes like softly open. And I do that when I meditate too. I just keep them barely open, really soft, and I breathe that way. And it just helps me stay present. Another trick is if you're standing across from someone and you're connecting before a scene, connecting before sex, anything like that. One of the tricks is don't try to look at both of their eyes. It'll make you cross-eyed. So pick an eye, look at that one eye, and that will help you not switch back and forth, and you can just concentrate on the one eye. For me and Dan, he'll look at one of mine, I look at one of his. Doesn't matter which one, right? So a lot of these breathing exercises, I will actually recommend to practice them and practice for like 5 or 10 minutes until you get good at it. And the point of being good at it just means being conscious of it, paying attention to what it is that you're doing. And the more you practice it, the easier it gets. You will find in Kundalini, probably not Kundalini yoga, but there are some Kundalini practices. I'm typing these words in the chat, by the way. Kundalini practices that do fire breath orgasm. I know Kadoshka does fire breath. I don't know about Tantra. And then us Kadishti are all over the board with different things that we do. So some do fire breath, some don't. So getting started, I've already given you a lot of, sometimes my classes are like fire hoses, lots of information. So getting started with breathing into your body. You can practice without sex, but you can also practice with sex. Maybe while you're with someone else or while you're solo, all of this stuff can absolutely be done solo and practice solo. During sex alone or with someone, breathe deep and focus on your, I'm going to use the word genitals. I've got a lot of other words in mind, but we'll stick with that. So while you're enhancing your pleasure and touching yourself, as your pleasure builds, take deep breaths and try to breathe all the way down to your root chakra. Picture, if you look up a chakra chart, it'll show you the red chakra is at your perineum. It's right between your legs. So when you're pleasuring yourself, I like to think of a red circle right there at the root chakra. So your root chakra color is red. And I like to breathe. And when I say breathe into your red chakra, it's all visual. If you can visualize things, then just visualize red, visualize energy in that chakra. Visualize breathing into that chakra, taking a breath and it traveling through your body and hitting that chakra, and it'll energize it. Energy will follow your breath, energy will follow your intent. Okay. And as you breathe, if you want to, even add some Kegels to it, add something physical so that you can learn where that breath is supposed to go. Breathe in, send it to the root chakra, maybe do some Kegels. If you're not a visualizer, I know some people can't visualize, just have that intent that it goes to your genitals. And it may be that even though you can't visualize it, I have someone that I was working with that could actually hear different sounds. The sounds that she was hearing would change as it got to her root chakra. So just kind of pay attention to what goes on, how we process energy, how we process breath, how we listen to our bodies is kind of different for everyone, but visualizing works for most. So once you visualize there, once you start breathing there, it's actually going to heighten the sensation. And that's really cool the first time you experience it. It's really cool the 10th time you experience it, and it validates it again. So try to practice with that. Breathing deep lowers stress. And when you lower stress, that's always good for our sex life, right? With lower stress, it helps create an intimate and exciting and fulfilling sex. Deep breathing, like I said, is pretty key for staying calm. If you're stressed out, deep breaths. Try to get into that happy place. Something to keep in mind, shallow breath is actually more closely associated with that fight or flight feeling. Remember, I said after the car accident that we had, I was hyperventilating. It was the shallow breath, and it very much triggers those chemicals of the flashbacks, the fight or flight, that sort of thing. So if you're doing that during sex, it is going to trigger those chemicals instead of your happy chemicals. You really want to realize that you're doing the shallow breaths and get back into the deep breaths. Now, I'm going to say that with the caveat of some of us like fear play. So if you like fear play and that's the type of scene that you're in, go for the shallow breath. That is going to get you into that fight or flight that you're looking for on purpose. But if you want out of it, it's the deep breaths. Okay, so I already went over the fourfold breath, the four square breath. It's called two different things, fourfold and four square. And remember my finger action. That's why it's called square. It's four up, four across, four exhale, four pause. So four inhale, pause for four, exhale for four, pause for four. Find a rhythm that works for you. So then there's the circular breath. This is the one that is the breathing in a continuous flow. Okay, so you don't pause. It's in and out and in and out. There's no breaks between the inhale and the exhale. You can be sitting, you can be laying down. You want to breathe gently through the mouth, feeling your throat open. Okay, it's a slight effort to inhale, and then you let the exhale fall out. You start that with just feeling the breath. And then what you can do when you get used to what it's like to just do the regular breathing in and out, then picture it traveling through your body. I'll usually close my eyes with this so that I can visualize it. And I'm going to breathe in and let it circle through. And it'll actually slow down your breathing because when you picture it going through your body, it has more distance to travel in and out. This breath also connects with the breath called the microcosmic orbit. And you might hear of the microcosmic orbit, when people talk about energy work as well. And that's because, like I said, energy and breath are very closely related. So with the microcosmic orbit, Again, if you look that one up, you can find plenty of pictures of it. But usually the two pictures that are shown are either two people standing across from each other, they're eye gazing, they're breathing together, and both of them are visualizing their energy coming out, traveling through the other person, traveling through them, and then reconnecting. So you can either picture it mouth down the spine, through the genitals, up the spine, through the mouth, or through the head. So even though you're breathing in through the mouth, you can picture it coming in the top of your head, down the spine, through the genitals, up the spine, back to the top of the head. So it's creating this orbit through both of you. You can practice it with yourself solo too, just to get some practice. But if you can picture that with another person, it literally syncs up your brain waves, it syncs up your heart waves. And if you're making the eye contact at the same time, you're connecting to this other human being. Your energy is starting to meld together. And that makes for a kick-ass scene if you can make that connection. And I use the word scene. So think scene, think sex, think just connecting to another person. Maybe you want to cuddle for a movie and you want to connect like that first. It's amazing. So some of the pictures are people standing together and doing it. The other position that you can find is called the yab yum. Yeah. And this is like the tantra position that you can find, where it's usually the male sitting cross-legged and then the female sitting and wrapping on him, on his legs or his penis. Let's use lingam. And she's usually got her arms around him. And obviously, it can be same gender or not. And they're hooked together and then they breathe together. So the microcosmic orbit is that way. And it's very intense, right? And it's intense because you're consciously doing this. You are consciously connecting with another person and using tools to make that connection. It's pretty hot. Some people ask me, when you're breathing with another person, does it matter if you're breathing in sync or if one breathes in while the other breathes out and then vice versa? Doesn't really matter. The part that is important is that it is the conscious connection. That's the important part. Whether you're breathing together or breathing opposite, it doesn't really matter. You can do it either way. Let's go back to the heart breath. So the heart breath, and I'm going to go through the steps with you. With the heart breath, you're going to sit comfortably. So this is literally a practice that you can do together. You're going to sit comfortably. You're going to yawn. Okay. You're going to yawn on purpose. And what that does is it asks your body for air. It's going to fill you with more air. It's going to give you a bigger feeling of being alive. And the trick is that you don't want to like force it, but you do want to fake it till you make it. So you kind of be gentle with it and then tell yourself that you want to yawn, and then it'll come on. It'll happen for you. So when you yawn, feel how it opens the back of your throat. It's going to stretch your mouth and it's going to stretch your face. And you might feel your ears pop, which is always kind of cool. I guess it depends what your altitude is, right? So as you yawn, most of us, when we yawn, we've been told to cover our mouth or we try to clench our face if we're around people. Someone has taught us that it's rude to yawn, but instead embrace that yawn. Feel your face open up. Feel you take in that big breath. Open your mouth, relax your jaw and your face. Breathe through your mouth with the yawn. Breathe gently but fully. Take in that breath. Exhale with a sigh. Not many of us do that, but it actually feels kind of yummy to do that yawn and take in that breath and then have a noise, have a sound when you let it out. So in, Feel everything relax, and then, and that will actually, when you do that, you can actually feel it in your chest. That kind of brings your focus to the heart. Let the air fall out, sigh, make a sound. Take in as much air as you can effortlessly, and then let it go with that sigh. If you want to, place your hand on your heart. You're trying to remember to breathe in and breathe out and be conscious where it's going and making that sound. And do it for like 3 minutes. I mean, if you turn this into a daily practice of just paying attention and being mindful, I'm gonna tell you, some people, I talk about meditation all the time because it's been so beneficial to me. And some people say that they can't meditate and they can't sit still long enough. If you do this for like 3 minutes a day, this is meditation. You are practicing, you are training your brain to be in the moment. You're training your brain to be in the moment through breath. And that is exactly what you do during meditation. So do this for a couple of minutes a day, and it will actually calm you. It will actually relax you. I need to remember to take my own advice. It is very calming, very relaxing. So that's the heart breath. In, let it fall out with a sound. Feel the sound in your chest. Next is the fire breath. The fire breath is also called the cobra breath. And if you ever do any study with Tantra, this is like the thing that you're not supposed to do without a Tantra teacher or a guru or something like that. But I've done it in the back of a bookshop with a teacher. I would do a little bit more research on it, but it's just a breathing technique. If you ever do Kundalini yoga or a Kundalini practice, sometimes breath of fire is also part of that. The directions I have that I've used before is sitting with a straight spine while you're learning. But most of us, when we do fire breath, we lay on our backs. We lay on our backs. We have our knees in the air, so our feet are flat on the floor with our knees in the air, and then back flat on the floor. The emphasis is on the exhale. With some of these breathing techniques, the emphasis is on the inhale and what you do with the breath, like the microcosmic orbit. It can be with a partner and you're paying attention to circles. It can be the square, right? This one, the emphasis is on the exhale. You're going to take in the breath, you're going to fill your lungs, and then you're going to exhale. And when you exhale, you're going to push air out rapidly, pulling the navel to the spine. And basically, that just means you're going to do some core work. You're going to take in a breath and then exhale, navel to spine. Now, what's going to happen is that is also going to do like Kegels at the same time. Air in. Now, when I pull air in, I squeeze my genitals like a Kegel, and then release when I exhale. That is absolutely going to energize your root chakra, energize your genitals. You are going to feel the blood flow when you do that. If you put a hand on your diaphragm, you're also going to be able to feel the power of that breath. This is supposed to be a powerful breath. The exhale. You can begin with one breath like every 2 seconds. You don't want to do this too fast at first. You want to learn how to do it slow. Begin with one breath every 2 seconds. Build up to 1 or 2 breaths a second. You're going to learn. And then over time, you're going to learn to speed it up, and you are going to feel the energy. You're going to feel the power. You're going to feel the fire. So if I am spacing out, I have a habit of detaching sometimes because of my PTSD. If I remember to do this, this is going to bring me back into my body so fast. You can actually use this. I need to remember this, right? Because you can actually use this instead of caffeine. It is going to build that energy, build that power, and wake you up. Part of that's the oxygen, part of that's the intent, part of that is the awareness. Okay. And like I said, some modalities like Tantra don't want you to do it on your own. I've done it on my own for many years, and it's you just have to remember how much power there is behind it. And this is something you can do with it by yourself, with a partner. Wow, I just had a vision of I might have to try this with someone. Can you imagine doing this fire breath orgasm? You're breathing in the energy, you're letting it out, you're clenching your genitals. Think of scissoring with somebody. Doing that while scissoring with somebody or laying on top of somebody. You don't even have to be having sex, though. Can you imagine if you are? I mean, that's just going to be so powerful with that breathing together, the clenching of the genitals, the putting in the power, the feeling of the fire, the whole thing. Consciously making the sex better with these practices. So we've done the heart breath. We have done the synced partner breathing, which was the microcosmic orbit. So just remember it's the intent with that. So you can do it either way. If you want to be more conscious with the way you do it, like I said, you can picture the energy in the microcosmic orbit. It doesn't matter if you're breathing out together, in together, or back and forth. But if you want to make it more conscious, then agree on how you're going to do it, or someone take the lead like a dance. Sometimes what Dan will do is put his hand on my heart and he'll push when he wants me to exhale. So he'll let up the pressure, and I know to take a breath in, and then he'll push, and I know to breathe out. And that way I don't have to watch what he's doing. I can close my eyes and just feel the pressure of the hand. And that will sync us up as well. So, and I say I close my eyes. It's better to have your eyes open, but sometimes I do like them closed. And then if you take any of the energy courses that I do with the chakras, find a partner that can do the chakras with you, to picture filling in the red chakra and then releasing, and filling in the orange sacral chakra and releasing. There's so much stuff that you can do with breath that you can learn on your own, learn with a partner. It's about being conscious. It's about doing this together and creating that connection. Very powerful stuff.